Hello and welcome, everyone. So we're here for a special reading of the Outer Space Anthology, edited by Midge Goldberg. I have a copy here. I'm Anton Yakovlev, one of the co-hosts of Carmine Street Metrics, and Wendy Sloan, the other host, is also here. And at this time, I'm going to pass it on to the editor, Midge Goldberg, who is going to say a few words and introduce our readers. So Midge, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Anton and Wendy, for agreeing to host this special Carmine Street Metrics reading. I have to tell you that even though I'm the host here, I'm probably the most excited attendee because while I've known some of the contributors for many years, and I haven't seen them, and there are others who I've never met at all, never talked to until tonight. I only communicated by email with them after I found their poem online or in a book or somewhere. So I just really can't wait to hear all of them with the rest of you. Just a few words about the anthology. So I had the idea in 2019. It was the upcoming 50th anniversary of the moon landing. And Cambridge has this 100 poems series of anthologies, and it seemed like a perfect vehicle for something like this to draw attention to poems about outer space by well-known poets and by some not so well-known poets, and also to see how poets across time and cultures thought about outer space. Since then, with the launch of the James Webb Telescope and Artemis 1, it just seems like it made the book even more timely than I had originally imagined. So I tried to select poems, as I said, from across times and cultures by poets and by scientists to illuminate similarities, differences, and sort of the evolution of thought about outer space. I think that the readers here tonight are a wonderful cross-section of that. We have poets and scientist poets from Australia, the US, Canada, the UK/Paris, and they're going to be reading their own poems and translations, plus most of them will read a second poem that they picked from the book, and I hope they'll take a minute to explain why they picked that second poem. So without further ado, our first reader tonight is Victoria Moul. Victoria is joining us from Paris, where it's about midnight, I think. Victoria is a reader in early modern Latin and English at University College London, although she's currently living in Paris. She also writes and translates poetry. Victoria.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I hope you can hear me. It's actually rather later than midnight here in Paris. It is the middle of the night. I'm up in a little attic room, so as not to disturb everyone. So I'm going to read two poems. I'm going to read the poem that I translated for this anthology, and thank you very much, Midge, both for inviting me to translate the poem and also for inviting me to be here tonight. This is a little poem, probably actually a quotation from a verse drama, although we don't really know, that is attributed to Basa, an early Sanskrit dramatist, but again, that's pretty shaky. We don't really know. It's included in a very important anthology of Sanskrit poetry called the Subhashita Ratnakosha, put together by a Buddhist actually in the 11th century, but including pieces of many centuries before that as well. So this is a translation of possibly Basa's little poem. A cat laps at beams in a bowl. An elephant takes rays amid leaves to be sweet white stems. A girl, resting from love, reaches for the bright pool of her discarded dress. So by moonlight are we all, greater or less, deceived. It's from a section of the anthology talking about love, but also the moon, the whole section about the moon and love. Okay, and the other poem that I'm going to read is by A.E. Houseman. Midge just asked us to say why we chose the poem. I attended a reading for this anthology, to launch this anthology in Cambridge in the UK in the autumn. where there were fewer readers, and we were asked to read several other pieces from the anthology. And this was one of the ones that I read. I guess I'm reading it just because I think it's a really lovely poem. It's a poem I've known for a long time, so I need to read that one. It's called Stars, I Have Seen Them Fall, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't really have a title in its original publication. Stars, I have seen them fall, but when they drop and die, no star is lost at all from all the star-sown sky. The toil of all that be helps not the primal fault. It rains into the sea, and still the sea is salt. Okay, that's all from me. I'm afraid I won't be with you probably right till the end because of the time here, and I've got quite a few little kids asleep. So, but thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Victoria. Yeah, Victoria braved the train from Paris to England and a possible train strike, all while traveling with a baby to be at the book launch. So it was fantastic to have her there. Okay, our next reader is Alice Gorman. Alice is an internationally recognized leader in the field of space archaeology and the author of the award-winning book, Dr. Space Junk versus the Universe, Archaeology and the Future, published by MIT Press. Asteroid 551014 Gorman is named after her in recognition of her work in establishing space archaeology. And I have to tell one story. When I asked her to have her poem in the book, she said, "Oh, this is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me." And I said, "Alice, you have an asteroid named after you. Like, how is that possible?" But Alice has been great, and I look forward to hearing her read her poem. So Alice.
Thank you, Midge. And I actually have some images to go with this poem. While I get the screen up, I'd like to follow Australian practice and acknowledge that I'm speaking to you today from the country of the Wiradjuri people. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and acknowledge their deep and ongoing cultural connections to land, sea, and of course, most importantly in this context, to sky country. And I extend my respect to the traditional owners of all the different lands that the audience and the poets are joining us from today. So it is true. I think when Midge said she wanted to include my poem, I seriously felt it was the most exciting thing that had ever happened to me. My poem is called Here Now the Sun, a poem for Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman in space. And it's written by the technique of erasure. So I've used the transcript of Valentina Tereshkova's flight in 1963. So these are her words, and I've turned them into this poem, which I will now share with you. 1, ready for launch. The suit is working well. The inflow stream is working well. I'm ready for launch. I feel excellent. Everything is normal. I'm not a delicate lady. Everything is normal on board. I'm ready for launch. I'm taking up the initial position, feeling excellent. 2, launch. The vehicle's moving smoothly, vehicle's moving smoothly. I feel excellent, vehicle's moving well. I feel good, I feel good. I see the earth on the porthole. I feel excellent. The earth is very beautiful. The vehicle is moving smoothly. I see earth in the porthole slightly obscured by clouds. 3, orbit. I'll do everything that I need to do. I don't understand. I didn't see anything. I feel excellent. The clock is moving. I see the horizon through the observation port. I see the earth in the observation port. I feel excellent. All systems on the vehicle are working perfectly. Everything is excellent. I hear you perfectly. 4, the other cosmonaut. I hear you perfectly. I feel excellent. I feel excellent, excellent. I'm approaching Cape Horn. At the outer ring, the little star disappeared. Wasn't that you? Don't go far from me, my friend. I can't see the moon. The stars are passing further up. I'm seeing such a bright star. 5. The ships are on their way. The vehicle is responding perfectly, perfectly. Roger, Roger. From the southern point I called him, he's silent. From the north, the same. At our harbour, the ships are silently smoking. Can you hear? For the real boys, the harbour is the native home. Comrade to comrade, they'll always stand together. And far, far away, the ships are on their way. And all who are young at heart stand shoulder to shoulder. 6, 4th orbit. 19 hours, 25 minutes. I sang songs for him. In the center, such a blue spot. Here now the sun, not orange, not red, not light red, but orange. I'm also feeling excellent. Here now the sun, visible and lit up. In the outer ring, the horizon is visible. It's a very beautiful sight. At first it's light blue, then lighter, then dark. 7. Greetings to all the women of the world. Soviet women, greetings to all Soviet women. I wish you personal good luck and great success. Women of the world, greetings to you from space. I wish you good luck and success. 8. The flight is normal. Cabin pressure, 1.15. Humidity, 61%. Temperature, 23 degrees. Carbon dioxide, 0.1. Oxygen, 250. Pulse, 84, 90, 100. Breathing, 22. I feel excellent. See you soon in the homeland. I hear you perfectly, perfectly. The flight is proceeding normally. All systems of the ship are working perfectly. I feel excellent. I hear you. I'm waiting. Everything is excellent. The spaceship is working perfectly. I'm in good spirits. I feel excellent. I hear everything well. The flight is normal. All systems on the ship are working perfectly. Pressure in the suit, 1 atmosphere. Humidity, 40%. Temperature, 28 degrees. Carbon dioxide, 0.2%. Oxygen, 200. All systems on the ship are working excellently. I feel excellent. 9. Dear Nikita Sergeyevich. Dear Nikita Sergeyevich, I will use all my strength and knowledge to fully complete the flight, till we meet again soon on our Soviet land. Moscow, Kremlin, I am reporting. Dear Nikita Sergeyevich Khrushchev, the flight is proceeding normally. All systems on the ship are working perfectly. I feel excellent. Thanks to all the Soviet people. See you soon in the homeland. Dear Nikita Sergeyevich, deeply touched by your attention with all my heart. Dear Nikita Sergeyevich, I will use all my strength and knowledge to complete the flight, till we meet again soon on our Soviet land. 10. Shadows. There aren't enough fingers to block the sun. It's very sunny, difficult to see. At the present, a very bright sun illuminating the very high clouds. The horizon above the bright clouds transitions into shadows. The dark sky is visible in the survey viewport. The flight is proceeding normally. I feel excellent. 11. This is Chaika. This is Chaika. Over. 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 Thank you for listening. That's the end.
Thank you so much, Alice. It was great to hear that. I've read it so many times, but it was wonderful to hear it read out loud. Our next reader is A.M. Juster. In case you haven't noticed, this is an everyone but New England reading. New England readers have had chances to appear on in person at readings, and so I wanted to keep this one for everyone else. But this gentleman snuck off to Tennessee just so that he could be part of this reading. So let's see, we have A.M. Juster has written poems and translations that have appeared in Poetry, the Paris Review, the Hudson Review, and other journals. He is the only 3-time winner of the Howard Nemeroff Sonnet Award and has won the Barnstone Translation and Richard Wilbur Awards. His translations of Petrarch's Canzoniere by W.W. Norton will be released in 2023.
Actually, it's looking like 2024 now, but we'll see.
All right, Mike Juster.
Thanks a lot, Midge, and thank you for including me in this wonderful anthology. We've actually been on the road since late last year, so I didn't have the anthology with me. I didn't pick a second poem, so I'm just going to read a translation from the Old English Phoenix. And just briefly on the myth, originally an Egyptian myth that Ovid transformed brilliantly. Lactantius translated it into a Christian myth, but very gingerly. And then the Old English Phoenix, which is much longer than the Ovid or the Lactantius, tried to make it, I think, even more Christian. It's the only one where the Phoenix actually is described as male rather than female or sexually ambiguous. But it's a beautiful poem, and it's a poem where the striving for the skies and striving to be at one with God are pretty much the same. So let me start. I've also tried to mimic the Anglo-Saxon alliterative style. So you'll have, in each line, you'll have 2 pairs of half lines that are have 2 stresses, and there's some alliteration on stressed syllables, throughout each line. From the Old English Phoenix, those woods are watched by a wondrous, delightful, strong-winged fowl called a phoenix. He lives in that place alone in a lair in steadfast style. He will know no death on that pleasant plain while the earth endures. There he must scan the cycle of the sun and keep on coming toward God's candle, that joyous gem, to observe zealously up until the rise of the most regal star above the brilliant eastern sea waves, our Father's legacy gleaming gorgeously as God's bright sign. The star is hidden, lurking below the waves in the west. It stays through sunrise, and the black night glides into gloom. Then the stately bird, strong of wing, searches below the sky and over ocean for mountain streams until the heavens' rays arise from the east, gliding upon open ocean. Thank you. Thank you, Midge and Anton.
Thanks, Mike. Our next reader is Jay Ruzesky. Jay is another one that I'm only meeting for the first time tonight. He is a writer and digital media artist. He is the author of 3 poetry collections as well as a novel. And After Antarctica, an Amundsen Pilgrimage, a book of creative nonfiction. He lives on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. Jay?
Well, I want to start by saying a big thanks to you, Midge, for this beautiful book, and Anton for organizing this reading. And I'm really pleased to be in such rich company. So thank you for including me in the reading too. And I'd like to welcome everybody virtually, at least, to the traditional and unceded territory of the Cowichan people, where I am very grateful to learn and think and live my life. So the poem I'm going to read is a poem that came from an experience a long time ago. I was in the early 90s, I was on a writing retreat at the Banff Center for the Arts. And I'm sure some of you have been on those sort of retreats, and they're sort of beautiful and unreal in a way, right? Where you get to focus on your writing, but you're a long ways away from, one is a long ways away from one's life. And so I was away for an extended period of time, and it was not long after the dissolution of the former Soviet Union. And when I was there, I heard about and read about the story of Sergei Krikalev, the cosmonaut, who was on the space station Mir when the Berlin Wall came down, and who ended up spending about twice the amount of time he was supposed to up on the space station, over 300 days, in fact, up in space. That wasn't necessarily planned. So I felt like he was a kind of a wonderful metaphor for how I was feeling about orbiting my life at the time. And so, you know, in a way, this is a sort of conversation, although he's the one who gets to talk. This poem is called Sergei Krikalev on the Space Station Mir. And it begins with a little epigraph from the poet Michael Ondaatje, his poem White Dwarfs, which goes, "This is for those people that hover and die in the ether peripheries. My name is Sergei, and my body is a balloon. I want to come down. I tie myself to things. My eyes try to describe your face. They've forgotten. My ears echo your voice. I'm a star. You can see me skating on the dome of night. My blades catch sun from the other side of Earth. Days last an hour and a half. No one else lives here. My country has disappeared. I do not know where home is. I'm a painter standing back. I watch clouds heave like cream spilled in tea. I see the burning parrot feathers of the Amazon forests. Ranges of mountains are scales along the hide of the planet. The oceans are my only sky. This is my refuge. There's no one else near me. Do you understand what that means? Elena? I'm cold up here. I hang over Moscow and imagine you in our flat feeding little Olga in a messy chair. And when I drift out of signal range, I do things you don't want to hear about. These feet do not know my weight. A slow balloon bounces off the walls. I do not feel like I am flying. I want to come back and swim in your hair. I want to smell you. I want to arrive in the world and know my place. Think of me. I'm yours, adrift. Let me describe my universe. I can see for years.
Thank you, Jay. I read the poem and loved it. And then because of the poem, went and learned more about what had really happened. So it was a great introduction to that.
Nice.
Our next reader tonight is John Curl. John is the author of Ancient American Poets, his translations and biographies of classical Maya, Aztec, and Inca poets. He studied spoken Maya in Quintana Roo. Now, please excuse my pronunciation of the languages. Spoken Nahuatl in Veracruz and spoken Quechua. I should have asked you first. In Cusco. He has a degree in comparative literature from the City College of New York and resides in Berkeley, California. John.
Thank you so much, Midge. I'm very glad to be here today. So I'm going to read one of the earliest recorded poems in the Mayan language. It comes from Yucatan, probably from the 1400s, at least the 1400s, and was transcribed into alphabetic Mayan in the early 1700s in a book known as The Songs of Tzitbalche, which was compiled by a man named Abam, which means Mr. Jaguar. The title page reads, "The Book of the Dances of the Ancient People, that it was the custom to perform here in the towns when the whites had not yet arrived." And so I translated a number of the poems in this book, and they are in this book, Ancient American Poets, which comes from Bilingual Press, and includes poetry by ancient Aztec poetry and Inca poetry. So I will read you just a few lines of the original in Mayan, just to give you the flavor of poetry in the Mayan language. "Those who build houses and temples. Wapacha'ob, Yetel Putsa'ob. Sulam Kabet, Upizil, Ushokil. Wahai, Pelhab Wakatum, Kinmanak, Leukinil Waite, Baho Baleil, Hanuch Chak Winkoob, Laiti Oob, Lis Upak Leil, Uuchben Kahoo. Those who build houses and temples, essential to count the Hab years or Katuns that have passed since the great powerful men raised the walls of the ancient cities that we see now here in the province of the plains. All these cities scattered on the earth, here and there on high hills. Here in the cities, we try to give meaning to what we see today in the skies and what we know. For day to day, at midday, we see in the skies the signs told to us by the ancient people of this land, the ancient people of these villages here on our earth. Let us purify our hearts so at nightfall and at midnight, from horizon to zenith, we may read the face of the sky. And the other poem that I will read is one of the other Native American poems or songs that are included in this book. This one is a translation from the Passamaquoddy and Algonquian language of Eastern Maine and New Brunswick, translated by Charles Godfrey Leland. And this was published in the late 19th century, but exactly when this comes from is anybody's guess. The Song of the Stars. We are the stars which sing. We sing with our light. We are the birds of fire. We fly over the sky. Our light is a voice. We make a road for spirits, for the spirits to pass over. Among us are 3 hunters who chase a bear. There was never a time when they were not hunting. We look down on the mountains. This is the Song of the Stars.
Thank you, John. I was really glad that he decided to read that one. I liked that one a lot. And when I was doing some research on it, I learned that the 3 hunters chasing the bear that they're referring to is most likely the handle of the Big Dipper and referring to the Ursa Major, the constellation. So it's interesting. I'm gonna paste a few links in the chat while the readers are going, and which you can use if you're interested in getting a copy. Of course, I put some normal general links, and then also if you want to go through Cambridge Press themselves, they've provided a discount code, although you do still have to pay for shipping. Okay, our next reader tonight is Janet Kenny. Janet was born in New Zealand and sang professionally in Britain. She co-published Beyond Chernobyl, Women Respond, and her poetry collections are This Way to the Exit, published by White Violet Press, and Whistling in the Dark, published by Kelsey Books. Married to her late husband for 66 years, she lives by the sea in Queensland. Janet.
My poem Galaxies was written in 1995 when I'd just been to see an exhibition from the Hubble telescope images, and they were rather unsensationally shown in a rather dull gallery. And I came home and looked at my garden, and the next morning I wrote this. Galaxies. What is a galaxy to me compared with morning dew in sun that glows and sparkles? I can see the question is the same, just one unsolved conundrum. Tell me why the maker's maker is unknown, and yet each one of us must die. Chaos and cosmos cannot bring the answer. Dolphins, birds, and bats can navigate. My golden ring comes from a star. The eyes of cats have understanding, but evade my searching gaze. I will not let this tyrant life make me afraid. I understand and then forget. The solar winds play through the hair of planets. Trombones twine with flutes, and darkness flirts with infrared. Beyond my spectrum, color shoots pinheads of brilliance. Someone said the world is in a grain of sand, and as the telescopes display God's grains of grit, they seem less grand than human love. I dare to say that everything vibrates with bliss. Already I am full of awe. No greater wonder here than this adventure. There is nothing more. I would like to say something I didn't say because of the mess up with my technology. I'd like to pay my respects to the Bachelor people whose ground I am living on and whose spirit pervades and enriches my whole environment. Now, the second one that I'm going to read is a poem by the wonderful Deborah Warren. And I chose it because of its musicality and its deceptive depth. It gives the impression of being a light poem, but it's not. The Ballet of the 8-Week Kittens. With such abandon, buoyant, wide jetés around the kitchen, furniture and air, possessed by arcs of fur and ricochets, plungers and cabrioles, they're everywhere. Dance, kittens, take the table, flying, jump drunk. You have cause to pirouette, more than you dream of. Barns and meadows lying outside, things you don't imagine yet. Hurl yourselves in knots across the floor, leaps, demented entrechats. Ignore the galaxies beyond the kitchen door. And when you tumble to it that there's more than this, more than the little world you know, take me out there with you when you go.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Janet. Our next reader is Leslie Monsour. Leslie is an American poet who was born in Los Angeles and raised in Mexico City, the recipient of a fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts, as well as 5 Pushcart nominations. Leslie is the author of 2 poetry collections and the recent Coliseum Critical Introduction to Rina P. Espaillat, published by Franciscan University Press. Leslie.
Okay, hi, thank you so much. I want to especially thank Midge and Anton for making this happen. It's wonderful to be here. In 1991, there was a total eclipse of the sun. In Mexico City, it was the longest lasting eclipse, as far as I know, seen by the greatest number of people in the recorded history of eclipses. I and my family went down to see it, but we went up to the mountains for the experience, and it rained all day. After the eclipse, it cleared up. The only photo that I have of it is someone lighting a candle when everything went dark. And that's my picture of the total eclipse up in the mountains above Mexico City. The poem is dedicated to 2 very special people in my life and my connection to Mexico City. And I just want to add, to those who don't know what a pulqueria is, it's a bar where the ancient drink of fermented maguey, which is called pulque, is served. Rainy eclipse. For Martha and Mario Gottfried, Valle de Bravo, Mexico, July 11th, 1991. A starling like a piece of chipped basalt swerves high above the dark volcano, quiet as ash, across the chimney-colored basin of sky. The plug pulled out and all the light gone up the hole. I have an icy gulp of cola-flavored Bacardi. Its brown, sweet taste is all that glows. The black and sudden moon lasts 7 minutes. Back in town, where blackbirds curse the lake along the shore, some boys hold up a lifeless fish to blame the sky for scaring it to death. They say the water's been bewitched. It's not the same. I pass a man outside the pulqueria. He's stony, like a saint without a shrine, propped up against the chipped celestial wall. I love the way his shadow blends with mine. And the poem I chose to read is by Elizabeth Jennings. Elizabeth Jennings was an English poet who became known as part of the group called The Movement in England, made up of such poets as Philip Larkin, Kingsley Amis, Robert Conquest, James Fenton, and several others, who wrote in rhyme and meter in the middle of the last century when free verse was taking over. Jennings was one of the only, if not the only, woman included in their anthologies, which is one reason I chose her. And also because the phenomenon of light reaching us from outer space, light years after it's happened, is very fascinating to me. And this poem is her take on that. It's called Delay. The radiance of the star that leans on me was shining years ago. The light that now glitters up there, my eyes may never see. And so the time lag teases me with how love that loves now may not reach me until its first desire is spent. The star's impulse must wait for eyes to claim it beautiful, and love arrived may find us somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Another of my favorites. Another one I discovered while poet I discovered while working on this anthology, Elizabeth Jennings. Our next reader is John Foy. John won the Donald Justice Poetry Prize for his third book, No One Leaves the World Unhurt, published by Autumn House Press. His second book, Night Vision, was published by St. Augustine Press, won the New Criterion Poetry Prize. His work has appeared widely in journals and online. He lives in New York. John?
Hey there, Midge. You can hear me, yes?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to thank Midge for putting together this unique anthology. It's an honor to be here with her tonight and to be with the other poets who are reading as well. I'll read 2 poems from the anthology, one by me and one by A.E. Stallings. This one is mine. Fermi's paradox. This is the contradiction between the probability of extraterrestrial life and our lack of contact with it, which led the Italian physicist Enrico Fermi to ask the question, where is everybody? We sat together in the dark and talked about those other worlds Enrico Fermi thought might be awash with aliens because his numbers pointed up the likelihood of teeming life among the stars. But where, alas, did everybody go? You'd think perhaps the prodigies would come to us or play upon our signals and reciprocate, though not if they were bugs. It could be that they flamed out the same way we might disappear in Malthusian catastrophes we bring upon ourselves. Or maybe, by design, they've gone to hide beyond Andromeda because they realized long ago how frequently we lie. We're not worth knowing in the end, a filthy, biomechanical, weapons-bearing form of life that builds amusement parks. Of all the heavens haven't said, the best by far, I think, is this, that we, together in the dark, aspire not to care. And this is a poem by Alicia Stallings. On the nearest pass of Mars in 60,000 years. War or strife? Yes, you were always painted incarnadine, hematic, flushed with passion, sanguine. We depicted you acquainted with ruby hues, the rage in mortal fashion. And yet to see you ever closer, rolling elliptical through emptiness, our gazes are met now with a gaze past our controlling, red as an eyeball through which blood amazes and stony blind. Although we have created gods and goddesses of loathing, doting, they neither love nor hate us, are defeated by telescopes that taper into nothing, a stare reflecting on itself, a pleasure cold and ferric, nothing we can treasure. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our next reader tonight is Donna Kane. Donna is a writer living in Rolla, British Columbia in Canada. Her poems, short fiction, reviews, and essays have been published widely. Her most recent book of poetry, Horary, hope I got that right, was a finalist for the 2020 Governor General's Literary Award. Donna.
Thank you so much, Midge. Yeah, like everyone else, I'm so grateful for this beautiful anthology and to be in such wonderful company. And everyone's reading so far has been amazing. Also, thank you, Anton and Wendy, for the organization to make this launch happen. I normally, well, half the year I live in Northern BC on Treaty 8 territory, but tonight I'm reading from Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada on Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And I would like to pay my respects to them and their deep understandings of the night sky. I have two poems to read. First one is mine, and it's from a larger collection, Orrery, as Midge mentioned that collection, and it's poems that were inspired by Pioneer 10, which was a space probe that was launched by NASA in 1972. And it was sent to explore Jupiter's moons, but it is now in interstellar space. And some scientists believe that it will still be traveling long after, like in 6 billion years, when the sun has consumed the Earth. So yeah, that's got my imagination. January 22nd, 2003, are the day NASA sent its last official signal to Pioneer 10. A budget crunch, but cake for everyone. Abandonment, but words to soothe the blow. Venerable, plucky, bold, deep space and unrequited beeping. Some said the shape of the probe squeezed from the tip of an icing gun was nothing short of lovely. Some said feeble cry and whimper. Everyone had a slice. And the second poem I'm going to read is by Rebecca Elson. She was a Canadian-born astronomer and poet, one of my favorites. She sadly died when she was 39. Her poem, Antidotes for Fear of Death, is one of my very favorites. But this one I'm going to read is also a beautiful poem, and it's called Carnal Knowledge. Having picked the final datum from the universe and fixed it in its column, named the causes of infinity, performed the calculus of the imaginary eye, it seems the body aches to come to the light, transmit the grace of gravity, express in its own algebra the symmetries of awe and fear, the shudder up the spine, the knowing passing like a cool wind that leaves the nape hairs leaping.
Thank you, Donna. Really appreciate it. And I just want to say Donna really went to bat for me with her own publisher so that I could include this poem in the book. I think it was like a couple of days after the deadline with Cambridge, and I'm on the phone with her and I'm messaging Cambridge like, no, she's working on it. Please include the poem. So thank you.
I appreciate that a lot.
Well, thank you, because I really wanted it in there. So appreciate it. Our next reader is Ned Balbo. Ned is the author of the Silburn Touch Me Nots, which won the New Criterion Poetry Prize, Three Nights of the Perseids, which won the Richard Wilbur Award, Upcycling Palmanock, I'm sorry, Ned, Lives of the Sleepers, Ernest Sandine Prize, Galileo's Banquet, Townsend University Prize, and The Trials of Edgar Poe and Other Poems, which won the Poets Prize and the Donald Justice Prize. So welcome, Ned.
Thanks, Midge. And it's been a great reading. It's lovely to hear these poems come to life and the voices of the authors or the author's friends or the author's admirers. And Anton, thanks also for playing host as always with such charm and verb. I'm going to first read a poem by Catherine Chandler, who is such a talented poet. I guess the book I know best by her is called Pointing Home, but really I think any of her books or poems are worth reading. This is on page 114, and it has an epigraph. Flammarion woodcut, and I'm reading the epigraph now. The Flammarion woodcut or engraving appeared in an 1888 book by French astronomer Nicolas Camille Flammarion. It depicts a man kneeling at a place where the earth meets the sky and looking through to a realm of clouds, fires, suns, and a double wheel. And the title of Catherine Chandler's poem, see the print is extra small there, I had to lift my glasses. The title is Flammarion Woodcut Pilgrim Redux by Catherine Chandler. He scans the sky and wonders if the Hubble will burst or not, the quintessential bubble, plotting new data on a deep field chart, light years removed from any human heart. And the next poem I'll read is my contribution to the anthology, Three Nights of the Perseids. You'll realize it's Sestina if you look at the page, if you don't hear it. And it is written when I was living in Iowa and teaching at Iowa State University. And Jane Satterfield, my wife, also a poet, was still living in Baltimore, but we got to enjoy some lovely visits together, but sometimes regretted our separation. Three Nights of the Perseids. The night sky's space debris is radiant, if you can see it. Every meteor a casualty or lost cause, and the shower unsurpassed for 3 nights every August, witnessed from my balcony. The Perseids, a comet's cast-offs, breach the atmosphere, more shooting stars that graze the stratosphere. My spotting scopes fixed to a gradient, the better to receive the Perseids before they vanish, each small light, a tear we might take as a sign or augury of what's to come, or not, before a shower of fortune rains or lessens when its hour arrives at its own pace. Though not one sphere, fiery, imperfect, blows past in a gust of solar wind, Small bodies radiate from somewhere, flying beetles, meteors of chitin that collide like Perseus, Andromeda, and fate pursuing us. I glimpse a rapid, brief celestial show in my peripheral vision, meteors my scope obscured, but you saw, sharp and clear, a stubborn gaze, the best ingredient for all rewarded, suddenly in August, here in Iowa, where you're a guest, bound for the East Coast when the Perseids are over, saddened by the radius our jobs impose, no quick fix in our power. We live with it. Across the hemisphere, a waning crescent pales, no meteorites reported. Here, a clockwork cosmos meets horizons that a greater dark augments. A jet's lights flash, too far away to fear, and we can tell it's contrails from persistent trains, gases dissolving in a shower of ionized traces, white streaks radiant. How far away they fly, what skies they pierce, whose lives they meet or tear with every shower on their August return, still radiant. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Ned. Ned's was one of the first poems I thought of for this anthology. I'd read it when it first came out, and
Thank you.
well, that's going to be one of them. And just in case you're curious of the about the first poem, the picture in the book is the woodcut that Catherine's describing, refers to in her. Our next reader is Yuan Wang. Yuan has authored The Book of Mirrors, published by White Pine Press, The Book of Totality, published by Salmon Poetry Press, The Book of Jade, published by Storyline Press, and Dreaming of Fallen Blossoms, Tune Poems of Su Dong Po, published by White Pine Press. She is a cosmologist at California Institute of Technology. And I also have to say, when I asked Yuan for her first poem, then after I got it and I was reading about her, I realized that she was a translator. So I wrote back to her and asked if she'd be interested in translating a poem for the anthology as well. And she said she's working on a project for NASA. She didn't know if she'd have time. And then about 4 hours later, I got like the first pass of it. And I'm like, are you supposed to be like doing something for NASA? That's gotta be more important than this poem. And she's like, well, no, I want to work on this. So I really appreciate all of her effort for both of her books. Yuan?
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm honored and delighted to be part of this very distinguished and wonderful company. Thank you, Midge, for including me in your amazing anthology. And thank you, Anton and Wendy, for hosting this event. So I think it's more logical to travel first into the past, then into the future. So I will begin by reading the Du Fu poem that Midge asked me to translate. Then I'll read my own poem, which is a journey into the distant future, perhaps very distant. So everyone has heard of Du Fu, right? So one of the two greatest Chinese poets who ever lived. Someone would say the greatest, but I also like Ni Bai. So Du Fu lived from 712 to 770 AD. 月圆杜甫，孤月当楼满，寒江冻夜飞。尾波惊不定，照喜起于衣。未却空山尽，高悬列苏西。故园松桂发，万里共清辉。父母by 杜甫。A long moon full over the balcony, reflected by a cold river onto a night window. Undulating waves shift gold intricate shimmers transform the knit quilt. The flawless moon in empty mountain quiet hangs high against dim constellations. The old garden's pines and osmanthus bloom 10,000 miles away in the same crystal light. So that's great Dufu. I should say that my translation is really, really different from a very, very famous translation, which I shall not name, but I can proudly tell you mine is much more accurate. Mine can be called a translation. The other one is kind of like, you know, more like a poem based on what Du Fu wrote. So now my own poem, which was published online that Midge came across. So actually, Midge, how did you find my poem? I'm mystified. Googling?
I guess so. I think I spent a lot of late nights
researching, right?
Well, all kinds of combination of words to try to find all different kinds of poems about different objects in space and different cultures and different everything I could think of. So I just stumbled on it somehow.
Thank you. I'm grateful. You can see my virtual background. Can someone name the virtual background behind me? I'm sure some of you can. Andromeda. Okay, so it's a beautiful image of Andromeda. Okay, so now you recognize it. Okay, so right, it's very relevant to this poem. And well, I have to accept that it's very likely I will never travel to space, right? So then I have some fun writing sci-fi poems. This one is called Space Journal, Serendipity. So I also have other space journal poems here and there. Space Journal, Serendipity. En route to Andromeda, I launch luminous spheres into the black desert of space to measure the expansion of the universe. Back to the garden, the air sparkles, Hildegard Baron singing Brunhilda's dilemma. Resist the urge to touch rainbow fish in the lily pond. Climb the aspen tree, its eyes latch onto my toes. Light takes 2 million years to reach Andromeda. The universe is almost empty. A cat's reflection gazes back at me from the dome's translucent back vault. So the science in this is, of course, my bread and butter, right? So I'm a cosmologist, which means that I study the science of the universe. One of the things I work on is actually figuring out new powerful ways to measure the expansion history of the universe, you know, so we can find out the so-called dark side of the universe. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Yun, very
My
much.
pleasure.
I really enjoyed hearing your poem and also the translation. The next, I wasn't going to insert myself into this reading, but we had, unfortunately, we just lost the poet Linda Paston a few weeks ago. She contributed a poem to this book and she was so kind and generous. I reached out to her and she insisted that I use it. She said that I think her son-in-law is an astronomer and she wanted to surprise him by having this poem included in this book. So she smoothed the way with her publisher. And I just, I'm sorry we lost her. I loved a lot of her poetry. So I'm going to read her contribution. Eclipse. Moon, half rusted away in the sun's indomitable shadow, I stand at the frosted window, wrapped in a flannel robe, and see not what Galileo saw, a universe of planets spinning like plates from the hands of a master juggler, but you, our one moon, slender at times full as a breast, brimming with milky light. If the sun is a warrior in flaming armor, the moon is a ghost disappearing, leaving behind the merest trace of stars. That was Linda Paston. All right, our last reader tonight is Anton Yakovlev, our host. Anton.
Hello. So we're going to go back to 1829, and I'm going to read my translation of a poem by Alexander Pushkin, Winter Morning. Winter morning. Sunshine and frost, a day of wonder. My lovely friend, you're still in slumber. It's time, my beauty, to go forth. Open your eyes, that bliss sealed tight. To North Aurora turn your sight, and rise, star of the north. Last night, recall the blizzard's roar, the dark that churned outside the door. The moon, like a pale blotch, yellowed behind the somber clouds. And there you sat, in gloom and doubts. But now, come here and watch on the blue skies. The sparkling snow, like a resplendent carpet, glows bright in the sun before our eyes. The leafless woods alone are dark. The frosted fir tree, a green spark. The river gleams under the ice. Our whole room shimmers in soft embers. In the warm stove, rollicking embers crackle as they dance away. It's fun to laze without a care, but listen. Let's have the brown mare harnessed to our sleigh. Gliding along the morning snow, dear friend, how rapidly we'll go, and with the eager horse, we'll flee to see the empty fields expanse. The woods, just recently so dense, and then the shore, so dear to me. And I'm going to end with a poem by the late Charles Simic, who passed away last month, unfortunately, a great poet. This poem was included by NASA in a July 2021 mission to Jupiter, and it's the last poem in the anthology. I'm writing to you from a world you'll have a hard time imagining. To a world I can't picture, no matter how hard I try. Do you still have birds that wake you up in the morning with their singing? And lovers who gaze at the stars, trying to read in them the fate of their love? If you do, we'll recognize one another. Charles Simic, rest in peace.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you so much for hosting, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. And I'm glad that, so many people were able to attend, and really fantastic reading. So great to, to hear everyone, so many participants in that. It was really an honor to have my translation included. And thank you, Wendy, also the co-host of Carmine Street Metrics. So we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody, for joining and participating.
Bye. Take care, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you.